there's this idea of Christ consciousness that's being talked about a lot, and I've seen many videos on it. And I'd like to share my experience with Christ consciousness, because what I haven't seen, and I was looking for it, is this conversation within the Islamic community amongst Muslims, modern day scholars or imams. I couldn't find anything. And by Christ consciousness, I mean it can mean many things, but one of the aspects of it that I'm referring to is the metaphorical return of Christ. So in Christianity and in Islam, what's understood is the dominant opinion, the mainstream opinion, is that Jesus is going to return physically in the flesh, and there's discussion around that. I've never been too interested in that, and I never even knew of this idea of Christ consciousness. I didn't have that vocabulary in my consciousness. Perhaps it was in the subconscious, but I ended up having some very powerful mystical experiences that I'd like to share, which led me to, as a Muslim man, I wear a cross. And this other thing is an Allah pendant. It's God in Arabic. And this is, to many people, an oxymoron or very confusing. And within the Islamic faith, a lot of people would deem it kufr. Kufr means disbelief. So essentially, you're out of the religion. Like, they'll kick you out. You're out of the team. So it's not a small thing for me to be wearing this. And if you like, it's arguably in some parts of the world they'll say I should be executed because I came into I'm Muslim and I still am, but they'd say wearing this cross takes me out of Islam. So it's not like I just threw this on because it looked cool. So I'd like to share what led to this. And I was thinking of going all the way back to my birth, because there's a lot of interesting events that occurred, but it'll take too long. So I decided to begin with the Christ consciousness portion specifically. And the intention here is just to share my journey. I'm not interested in convincing anyone of anything. I'm not judging anyone of anything, any beliefs. It's my experience and what my truth has been, and me attempting to stay in alignment with Source, with Allah, the best I can, right? That's the journey, that's what we're all on. And so I'd like to share it, and I think, like, when I was going through this, I wish there was something like this out there. So in many ways, this is for my previous self. So I'll start with ayahuasca. I've done a lot of psychedelics, and again, I'm not saying I recommend them. The first time I ever did psychedelics, I had no interest in them. I'm from Miami. I'm from Hialeah. We put psychedelics in the category of, like, what would you say, heroin, crack. We thought that's the crazy stuff. And I've been seeking for a long time. I've been on this journey. I've lived in Saudi Arabia. 10 years ago, I was studying there, Egypt. I've been dabbling. I just go wherever I feel called, and I'll go and I try to, whatever feels in alignment with me, I'll go, and it's been beautiful. It's been a beautiful ride. I took so much, and I've learned so much, and I continue to expand my understanding. Anyway, with the Christ consciousness, so psychedelics, my mufti, I was watching a lecture, and my mufti, he mentioned, and he's told me, he said, psychedelics are our window into the ghaib. The ghaib is an Arabic word for it. Typically it's translated unseen. So it's what the human being in this third density, three-dimensional physical existence can't see. And when he said that, something in my heart just exploded. like I have to try this. And now I know, one of the reasons I feel is that for anyone that's familiar with the inner mapping work, they break the cycle. Even if you're not, it's um, a lot of different traditions and schools talk about this in some way, where they'll divide the psyche up into four. So you have heart, mind, body, and spirit. And the goal is to become, in Arabic, I feel like it's insan al kamil, right? The not the complete human or the perfected human. That's the journey, right? Of oneness, of actualization, of alignment, of Christ consciousness, of Buddha consciousness, of Krishna consciousness, all these things, right? Different, same essence, different words. Um, so when Mufti said that, by my nature and because of a lot of things that have happened in my childhood, I inclined towards spirit. So when I heard that, it felt like, that's home. And the way my personality is, I love to explore, and sometimes I go. Not a lot of times I've gone too fast where I hurt people and I hurt myself. So I'm in the season right now, trying to slow down. You know, because in spirit land, as one of my teachers would say, it's full of possibilities, and everything's all good, which is true. But we live in the we're having a human experience right now, so it's important to integrate it. Anyway, when Mufti said that, my teacher, I said, I have to try this. What? A window into the ghaib, okay? And I took psilocybin mushrooms. I don't recommend, by the way, I don't recommend this at all. I took 5 grams, which is considered a heroic dose. This is years ago, maybe three, four, three, I don't know, something like this. And alone, which again I do not recommend. I wouldn't do it now, right? Without with not being in a safe environment, without a shaman or a qualified facilitator. No way, 5 6 grams, and I know nothing about psychedelics at this point. Like aside from that one phrase where it's a window into the unseen. And I took 5 grams in my apartment at night by myself. No music, just in bed, dark. And I just had there's right many is a very mystical experience. So that was the beginning of psychedelics, which I can tell the story. I don't want to make this video too long. I can tell that story. It was in some ways a confirmation of what we all know, and what I already knew, what the soul knows. And it's kind of like when you're a little when I was a little kid. I remember I used to think to myself, I wish Allah can just come talk to me and tell me exactly what to do. And then obviously that takes all the fun away. But in some sense, it was that. It's like, yeah, all this, it's all real. It's all real. So fast forward, I did that. I'm like, okay, this is psilocybin. What is ayahuasca? And I ended up doing quite a bit. I probably did ayahuasca 20 times within the span of a year and a half. And this was in a controlled environment with beautiful facilitators. Um, I'm so grateful for everyone, and always will be. Um, and for anyone that knows anything about ayahuasca, this is not marijuana. This is not alcohol. This is not fun. This is not partying. I many times thought I was at the gates of death, like right there, you know. So I don't want to get too much into what ayahuasca is about. I want to skip forward to the Christ consciousness. So the last time that I did ayahuasca, I I don't feel like recording anymore. So the last time I did ayahuasca, I was going to the ceremony. It was one of the most beautiful ceremonies I've ever experienced. I mean, they're all beautiful in their own way. This one was special. It was the last time I did it, and maybe a little under a year ago. I've been diagnosed with something called time blindness. So I'm not the best when it comes to time. So I did ayahuasca. So the last time I went to go do ayahuasca, this is where it started. So this is where all the Christ consciousness, the synchronicities, this is where it began. So this is where the story begins. I went for ayahuasca and I found out about it on Friday and the ceremony was Saturday. So I found out the night, the day before, and something just pulled me to it, right? And a lot of people would have told me to not do it, but something just, again, when it feels in alignment, I tried my very best to just witness, right? Alastu bi rabbikum bala shahidna. I love this. I feel like this is the formula for the human experience that source is the doer, Allah, and we're just witnessing, and we're trying our best to witness, right, and expand and let source work through us. Get it? This is the message anyway. I went for ayahuasca, and so the synchronicity started here. I get there, and the shaman or the facilitator knew my name very well. My name is Isa, by the way. And for those who don't know, Isa is Jesus in Arabic. So my name is Isa, and by the way, so this might be January or February. Because I was 32, and I'm turning 33, which is a significant number in pretty much every religious tradition, even outside of religious traditions. 33 is a significant number. In terms of Jesus, when it comes to Jesus, when it comes within Islam, 33 is apparently the age of Jannah, all these things. So I'm 32, turning 33 in March 2nd. I get there, and the facilitator knew my name very well, and apparently he kept saying, Isa's coming, Isa's coming, Isa's coming. And I was a little late, which I should not have been. And the reason he was familiar with my name is because he grew up with a Palestinian guy named Isa. So it was something we already had a type of connection, which is beautiful. I think it's very important to really connect deeply with your facilitator. So we already had that in common. I get there, we hugged, and then people were joking around saying, "Oh, Isa's here, Isa's here, Isa's coming," like this thing, right? It was a bit of a thing, but it was funny. This happens, and we start ayahuasca, having a beautiful, beautiful journey. And I had to use the bathroom. So I get up, someone typically helps out, and I walk into the bathroom. It's dark, it's beautiful. This was in a mansion, and it was an estate, and there was a mansion within the estate in Homestead, or I don't know if I should cut that out. And there's an older Russian lady. She was, older Russian lady. And she was coming out of the bathroom, it's dark, and she sees me. She says, "Can I have a hug?" Which is not the most abnormal thing in these places, in sacred spaces and plant medicine ceremonies. And I said, "Of course, sure." And I gave her a hug. I still remember. And she just held me for quite a long time. It might have been a minute or two, but it felt like quite a long time. It was a very tight hug. And she lets go. I can still see her eyes. She lets go. And she looks up at me and says, "It's like I'm hugging Jesus." And when I'm in ceremony, I'm very childlike. I mean, I'm like that anyway, but especially in ceremony. So I just love. I'm just pouring love out. I'm receiving love. It's beautiful, and I just thought it was funny. And I go to the bathroom, I come back, and the ceremony wrapped up. Amazing. I can maybe make another video if anyone's interested. Just beautiful. And then now it's time to go to bed, and I'm walking back inside of the house. And I see this girl there, young lady. See a young lady there. She might have been around my age, maybe a little older. And she was sitting down, and I just felt I liked her energy. So I walk in, and she looks at me. She's sitting down. There was like mattresses on the floor, and she says, "Oh, you must be Isa." I'm like, "I am." And then I went and sat next to her. And then she tells me this whole story about her sisters having a son, a baby boy. And one of the main names that they were looking at were Isa. So she's like, "This name has been on my mind for so long. I've never heard it before." until this whole thing with my sister was happening, and she told me this crazy story of how it came into their life. This name Isa, and so she's like, before you came, everyone kept saying Isa's coming, Isa's coming, and I'm just like, well, what? Who is this Isa? What's going on? So again, I was like, huh, okay, that's funny. And later on, the next day, we did San Pedro. Yeah, we did Wachumba, they called it, San Pedro. And there was a guy who was visiting Colombia. He said, and he told me he was in Colombia, and apparently in Colombia, I should Google this or ask one of my Colombian friends that they say Isa. They'll yell out Isa. He's at a concert or something. I don't know if it's a thing, if it's a slang, but so he also thought it was funny when people kept saying Isa's coming. So I don't think anything of any of this, up until that point, I don't. I just thought it was funny. I'm like, this is funny. And during ayahuasca, I did get some Christ-like energy, if that makes sense, right? And then, and I know that my name is Jesus, and I keep hearing this thing, Jesus coming, so the Jesus is coming. Right, so ceremony wraps up, beautiful people, beautiful lessons that I still am integrating today, to this day. A few days later, there's a long story behind this, but a few days later, I have, maybe 2 days later, I have a 5-MeO DMT, bufo. They call it the God molecule. Ceremony planned, right? Which again, I don't recommend this. This is, bufo itself is, I mean, psychedelics in general, and I should have said this earlier, it's it's like nuclear power. This is, you're playing with nuclear power. So this is no joke. This is these things, and then bufo, 5-MeO DMT, is the strongest psychedelic known to man so far that we know of. And so and people were, even the facilitator at the ayahuasca ceremony said, "Don't do it, Isa. Don't do it." A lot of people around me were telling me not to do it because it's that same thing I think I spoke about earlier about slowing down. Like, but it felt in alignment, and I went against uh, what people were saying respectfully, and I went for it, and thank God that I did. But now I go for bufo. Oof. And bufo, it's me, the beautiful facilitator. I have some pictures and videos that I might include in this video, maybe not. I don't know how to do it. I might hire someone on Fiverr, but I go for bufo, and someone accompanies me who I consider a beautiful friend and teacher, and I learned so much from her. Muslim lady, right? She's a Muslim lady, very spiritual, very, let's call her uh, let's call her Fatima. Fatima, very spiritual, just into tasawwuf, uh, very big heart. And I've learned a lot from her. And she came with me uh, on this journey. And so she was there, Muslim lady, hijabi, and the facilitator, who I'm so grateful for, having someone who could serve, who can hold that frequency of bufo so well. And I've done bufo in the past as well, right? Bufo is the best analogy I can think of with bufo, and it varies person to person, and depending on when you do it, even every time the same person does it, it's different. Some people do it and they just black out and they come back. The best analogy I can give, a lot of this stuff is ineffable. I learned this word from Mufti. You can't put a lot of these things, you can't put into words. It's I think of one of Rumi's quotes. Silence is the language of God. Everything else is poor translation. So when we try to put a lot of these things, these concepts into words, and we're a very mind-based society, the West, right? Everything mind, quantified, logic, which is not bad. It's a beautiful thing, but we're divorced from, or we have been. I should have said, I think the shift is occurring, but we have been far away from the heart space, from energy, but it's coming back now. Uh, so anyway, I go for a booth when I've done it before. This time was just something very different. This is the last time I've done it. So the facilitator, he said, well, the calling that he felt was, we'll start with a mini dose and then do 2 or 3 big doses. and I take the mini dose, and it just hits me like a massive dose. And this is where it began. This is where the analogy I wanted to give was the closest thing I could think of. And again, every analogy breaks down when we talk about these things. But it's sort of like, I think everyone agrees that we're spiritual beings, or most people would agree we're spiritual beings having a human experience, this idea of consciousness, that we're beyond this body, this physical body. And when we die, the body, it's like a car, like a vehicle, a car and a driver. So we're the driver inside the car. We're not the car itself. We're not this physical flesh. And when we die, they put this body in the ground, but consciousness is still there, the soul's still there. With Bufo, it's sort of like the car's still running, and you step out of the car, but the car's still running, and then you're able to come back into the car, into the third dimension, right? You step out of it completely. You step out. So I think the mini hits me like a full, like just like a full dose, and this is where it begins. And what begins is, again, it's hard to put this stuff into words. And anyone there are people that have had this experience, so they completely understand me, and the ones that haven't think I'm a lunatic, a maniac. Like this guy, Isa has lost his mind. One of my friends used to call me. My name is Isa Qureshi. One of my friends used to call me Isa Crazy because because and so I sometimes, it seems that way, but if it feels in alignment to me, I feel like I have no choice, right? So this is where the Christ consciousness began. It was this energy of Christ, and the idea. I'll just put the idea. The idea was the return of Christ. But well, I'll be completely honest. What was happening was that you are Christ. My name is Isa. I'm 33, and all these synchronicities are happening, and there's so many more synchronicities. But this wasn't a synchronicity. This was just a message. You're Christ. And I come back from this. I wake up. I might put the video up. I'm almost pulling my hair out. I'm in tears. I'm looking around, and I don't even tell my teacher, who I would call my friend, this Muslim lady, or the facilitator, because I'm ashamed. I'm like, I can't even share this. I thought I'm losing my mind. I'm like, I have gone crazy. I've lost my mind. That was the message, and I'm crying. And I'm like, what the? That's like you are the return of Christ. Is the message that's coming through. I can laugh about it now because I've worked through this, but it can't. Can you imagine at that time? I thought I've lost. And then we go. So then we go in for the next dose. I don't say anything to them. We go in for the next dose, and it's even harder. And it's not just you. It's that the message comes again. Like you have to take this. It's like I don't want to take this. And like you have to. It's like being thrusted onto me. What comes to mind is that ayah in the Quran where Allah says, I forgot it in Arabic, that we offered this revelation to the mountains and they declined it, but the human being took it, right? And typically, a lot of times it's referred to as the Quran is what's being talked about, but the Quran is what's wahi, it's from Allah. So that's again, energetically, what came to mind, and this idea that the return of Christ. So this is the main idea. The return of Christ, whether it's a physical return or not, I'm not debating that. But for me, the message and the experience was the return of Christ is Christ consciousness. It's also I'm not negating the physical return, but what was coming to me was this return of Christ consciousness, Buddha consciousness, Krishna awakening, right? Whatever you want to call it, and it's gonna come into human beings, into masses, into the collective. It's gonna shift the collective consciousness. And how another thing, it was how Christians and Muslims, which make up probably more than two-thirds of the world, both of these groups believe in a type of return. But what was freaking me out was the fact that what kept coming to me was that I am somehow the return of Christ. And this was I thought I lost my mind. And after this happened, I'm trying to figure this whole thing out. And then I come home. And when I would go into meditation, it would happen again. And I would just break down. And I'll see synchronicities everywhere. I I remember I called my, I'll try to remember a few. So many that, and anyone that's experienced true synchronicities know that if you can't put it into words, it's like you're going mad. It's like you're going crazy. It's kind of like, I was thinking of an analogy. It's like sometimes when you, let's say you buy a red Toyota Camry. Now all of a sudden you start seeing red Toyota Camrys more so than before on the street. But with the synchronicities, what happens is you start seeing, let's say, the red Toyota Camrys, but then when you look around, everything turns into a red Toyota Camry. And that's the part where it's like it's almost like a type of ego death, like a mini ego death, what my teacher says. And that's when you break down and it's scary because you think you're losing your mind. And so those kinds of things would happen. And I'll give you an example. Like I called my cousin, and I'm so grateful that look, imagine what I'm going through. And I have people that can hold me through this and support me through this. Like, what a blessing. Thank God. So I'll give I'll see some of the examples worth mentioning. I call my cousin, who's a sweetheart of a person and loves Quran, loves tafsir, is all learned Arabic, Quranic Arabic, so she understands it. And I call her and tell her this, and she's like, brother, she goes, brother, what do you think is happening? And here's the thing, I didn't know what was happening. That's why I'm like, what the like what? The part of Christ consciousness, I'm on board, I get it. But what my question kept what I kept coming back to is like, why are all these synchronicities happening to me? And then why is it that my name just happens to be Isa? And which is Jesus in Arabic, and then Qurayshi. I'm not saying I'm from the tribe of Quraysh, but the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam that means peace be upon him for anyone. It's out of respect that we say after his name. He he was from Quraysh tribe, and my last name is Qurayshi, and that was another synchronicity of how these two. This is gonna bring sounds. It sounds very hot, pie in the sky. Is that the term? But how Christ, they're gonna come together with Christ. Um, I'll give okay. I was gonna give an example. So I called my cousin. I tell her, and I'm sure I was crying. Like I don't know what's going on. And she was supportive, but no one truly knew what to say, right? And I told her all. And back then, I knew all the synchronicities. So I was just saying this happened, that happened, and this happened. So I'm telling her, and then I hang up the phone. And when I hang up the phone, or either we hung up, or she told me on the phone. And maybe I'll put this up on the screen. She sends me screenshots, and she said, or pictures. She says, "Brother, we're doing tafsir," and they go from front to from the beginning of the Quran to the end. And she's like, she said just yesterday or today or right now, we're at the story of Isa, like Jesus' story. We're there right now. And she sends me the pages like that. This is literally what I've been studying right now. Again, it could be, I get it, coincidence, but when things like this happen in what feels like the hundreds, you just start. It's like you think you feel like you're going crazy. I want to give another synchronicity. I'm talking to the lady, my friend, the older lady I told you guys about, and I mentioned earlier. And I was talking about this thing of Islam and Christianity and Jesus and Muhammad. I was telling her the synchronicities, and I'm sure these people remember a lot more of the synchronicities than even me. And she says, Isa. I say, yes. She's like, I want to send a picture to you of what I'm looking at right now. And she sends me a picture of her bookshelf. And there's numerous books, and I might put this up, that say Islam and Christianity, Jesus and Muhammad. And she knew about Isai Muslims, like the coming together of these two beautiful religions. And she's been studying this stuff for years, right? Which is why she was able to hold me through it and help me through this uncovering. That's another one, and then small, and then just there's many others, right? It doesn't like the story of Jesus, how he was born in the Quran, at least Maryam was alone, right? With the palm, we all know the story with on the palm tree. She was alone, and she gave birth. And then my mom tells me, she says, "Beta, I gave birth to you alone." Like, sure, she was in the hospital, but your dad wasn't there. No one was there. I was alone. I was a young girl giving birth to you, and I was alone. So these kinds of things as well. A lot of synchronicities. There's more, but I don't want to make this. I mean, I feel like you guys get the point. But, all right. And again, it can all just be a coincidence. But I'm just sharing my experience and where I was, And the big one was when I'll be meditating. And meditation is when it felt. Again, I'm gonna say something. A lot of these things I'm saying, people are gonna think I've lost my mind, but that's okay. So they say you do have to kind of lose your mind a little on the mystical path. It happens when I'll be meditating, and the energy will come back. And what it felt like, especially during Bufo, to me, energetically felt like Jibreel alayhi salam, Gabriel. And perhaps all of this, more than likely, is because this is my reality. This is my understanding. We create our reality. We all create our reality to a certain extent, right? There's so many quotes out there about, right, what we see outside, what we have within, all this stuff. We create our reality. And this was my imagination, right? But it was my reality. Um, so yeah, and during meditation, I'll have these powerful experiences, and I'll break down. Again, this was very scary. I'm laughing about it now. I'm joking, but I thought I lost my mind. And I'm talking to people, and I'm grateful for them that they were able to support me, but no one could tell me what was happening. Like, what the fuck? Like, why am I? What's going on? I kept saying it. I understand the Christ consciousness. I get it. I get it. The metaphorical return of Christ. I'm all on board. I think it's beautiful. But why are these synchronicities with me happening? With me being Isa 30, all this stuff. Why is this happening? That was what I was looking for, which I figured that out, obviously, as you can tell. I'm a lot more calm and I could joke around about this. Um, so I'll have those moments in the sauna when I'll be meditating. And and what I kept focusing on is just trying my best to be present, to make space. I have beautiful teachers, and I have beautiful friends and beautiful family. My family knows this, by the way. My mom, she likes it. This is a Pakistani Muslim lady, but the love is there, right? This is understanding. My friends know. I've been wearing this for a while. Um, so yeah, these kept happening, and then what people would tell me is just don't try to make sense of it, right? That ayah that I quoted earlier. We're all here to witness, all of us. All of us is, and we made that promise. This is the verse in the Quran that we are witnessing. One of my teachers and good friends always says, Isa, you're not the doer. God is the doer, right? None of us are truly the doer, and that's the realization that we're after, and the remembrance of who we are, our true nature. Um, and me wearing the cross, right? Me wearing the cross was another thing that came to me during meditation, and it was in alignment. So when this happens, for me, right, and for all of us, there's nothing we can truly do but follow that calling. And like I said, this is a big deal. Like this is people have been reaching out to me. Is everything okay? This is like I've committed suicide in some sense. In a lot of people's understanding. I don't believe that, but in a lot of people's understanding. And something cool about kufr, because they'll say this is kufr. Kufr comes from one of the meanings means ingratitude, right? So the opposite of kufr would be shukr. Another meaning of kufr, which is typically translated as disbelief, means to conceal or to hide something. So meaning, the kafir is concealing or hiding the truth. And what's so ironic, I was thinking about this, is the fact that for me, not sharing this or not wearing this would have been kufr. Because I'll be concealing what my truth I feel. Again, I'm not saying it's absolute truth, but we can only go off of the fitrah, right? What we can try to quiet down and make space and see what feels in alignment. The best. That's again. I keep saying this, but that's the whole journey, right? That's the whole game. So yeah, I feel like I had to share it. So this was another thing that came to me during meditation, and I asked the Muslim lady, I remember, and typically I don't ask anyone anything. I just, when something feels right, I just do it, and people that know me know that, right? I've I've done things that have hurt me and other people, because I didn't slow down enough, so I don't feel, obviously I'm not proud of that. But I jump into the deep end, and I asked, and I was told no, like, oh, you don't have to do that because it's such a, it's like, what, you gotta put a cross on? Oh my God. Yeah. But it felt in alignment, and I put it on, and I've had it on since, and I am so proud of both of these. I'm so proud. And people, of course, are gonna, this triggers a lot of people, which is interesting, right? If for humans, during this human experience, if something triggers us, that's actually a blessing because it shows us that there's something there we need to take a look at. Why am I getting triggered by this? The true flex, that's the biggest flex, is not being triggered. And if we do get triggered, it's still a blessing, right? Like the hadith, the condition of the believers is only good. So if we don't get triggered, good. If we do get triggered, good, because now uh, there's something there for us to look at. So I put it on. I forgot where I was in this story. Um, I Yeah, I put the cross on, and they told me not to do it. Yeah, people told me not to do it, and I did it anyway because it felt in alignment. Obviously, if I go to the masjid, if I'm going to visit someone, and I could put it under my shirt, I'll do it. Like I'm not right. I'm not. I don't like confrontation. I don't like. I'm not a disrespectful human. Um, but one thing I did want to mention is that I put a quick reel on Instagram with that's what sparked this video. Just asking if anyone else wears this. And there's a few different reasons why I did it. Practically speaking, what I could think conjure up in my mind. And one was I felt myself kind of almost putting it away in front of certain people and maybe not. And it just was feeling it was feeling icky, like I was feeling out of integrity and I don't like living like that. So it was kind of like, yo, like here it is. Yes, I'm wearing it. And just kind of like blast it out there. Right. And it wasn't energetically. The video got, this is an interesting ratio. There's like 30,000 likes or something, and I mean 30,000 views and like 40 likes. So if there was a dislike button, a lot of humans would have disliked it. And I think I didn't read many of the comments. I don't know who those people are, but and DMs just like, oh, you've lost your mind. What is wrong with you? You need to go to a mental, all this stuff. And it's okay. But it was energetically, it was heavy. So, and I get it. I get why. Um, I forgot where I was again. So that's happening. Let me fix this. So I put this on. I'm still having the synchronicities, but now I'll still, I still obviously break down but I'll just sit with it and I'll hold it and I stop trying to make sense of it. This was the key. I can't be, again, the thing that I talked about, we're from the West. Everything has to make sense, logic. Even me as spirit as I am. I was like, what the fuck is it? What is going on? But I stopped. One of my teachers said, "Stop trying to make sense of it. Just let it be." And this is great advice for all of us, for every time, for all the time, not just when we think we're going crazy. So once I did that, everything, then I figured out because I wanted to know why the Christ consciousness aspect. I'll get to that later, but I wanted to figure out if anyone's interested. What the hell is going on with me and this thing of that I'm Christ? And other people have had this, by the way. I was watching a podcast and other people have had this where they think they're Christ, right? Mine was unique because I am a male that looks more than likely like I could be related to Christ, right? He was Palestinian, Middle Eastern. My name is Isa, his age, and all the synchronicities. So that's what I was like, why is it unique to me? And one of the reasons I feel like why, because I'm such a skeptical person. I'm very open and open minded, but I'm so skeptical. And I think Source had to painted this way of the biggest thing was the bufo. Like I can't. I wish there were words for it. There aren't any words for it. Like the mystical experiences and the meditations and the energy. And I've been right. I'll say this again. People are gonna think I lost my mind, but for the 1% or the 1 or 2, and then the ones that are in my life actually, because there's other humans in my life that understand this, right? I've had during meditation experiences where I was on the cross. I felt Christ's energy, and I felt that I was Christ on the cross, and tears are flowing, and See, before I would have just lost my mind, like what is happening, but now I can just let go and just be present, and tears and it was a meeting of immense pain and immense pleasure, right? There's like a lot to that, but I've had that experience during meditation. I've had experiences where I felt that I was transported back to Ghar Hira, the cave Hira, where Prophet ﷺ used to go and meditate. Which, by the way, in the Islamic tradition, I feel like it's the biggest khalwa that the Sufis still have. But in the Islamic tradition, it's the biggest sunnah that's forgotten. Meditation is never talked about. Salah is beautiful, but it's not meditation. And the Prophet ﷺ was meditating. So I've had that, and then just recently I had a Buddha experience where it was this golden yellow energy, and it's just I felt the Buddha. Like I don't, there's no, again, if if there's anyone that doesn't believe, if because if we don't believe in mystical experiences, we're not gonna have them. And I used to not believe in it. I remember one of my teachers, and thank God for him. He was this is before a lot of this happened, I believe, and he told me how one time he was transported, and it was like he was back in India under this tree, and I felt because I respected him so much, it was like this battle of being open and skeptical. Like, what do you mean you were transported to India under a tree meditating? But I didn't shut it down. I was like, no, it's. I tried to I attempted to just hold space for it, and thank God because yeah, I would not have experienced a lot of these uh, profound kind of moments. So yeah, I've had those things. So what was the point? Oh yeah, as far as me, I realized the way I made sense of it was that that I had to see all that, right? I had to go through all that for me to get the point. It's not about me. Like it's not about me. It's not about you. It's not about any of us. Us as in the ego, right? The nefs, this personality. It is it's all source. It's all God. It's all Allah. It's all Ibn Arabi has this concept, wahdatul wujud, the oneness of being. Everything is a manifestation of Allah. Allah is the only thing that's real with a capital R, source. That's the only thing. So source does what source wills. These egos dissolve. These are not real. It's a blessing that we have them and we're on this journey and we're witnessing, right? This human experience, but it's all source. It's all Allah. And so it wasn't about me, it was the ego. It was me trying to make sense of it and why me and why me thinking I'm real with a capital R, right? This personality, this ego, Isa, this we all have it, right? Um and once I figured that out, and then I just leaned into it's Christ consciousness. It's the return of Christ. That's what's happening. So my reality, and I'll wrap this up. The reality that I live in, and it's been such a beautiful journey. Every single day, Alhamdulillah. In Arabic we say Alhamdulillah. Praise and thanks be to Source, to Allah. Yeah, it's so my reality. I'll share I'll end it with this. My reality is that we're living in a time, and I'm not the only one, by the way. Hey, Neymar. Hello, Neymar. We're living in a time right now of a collective awakening. I believe that. And it's served me well, right? Some people get upset, and I'm trying to understand why. What's the point of not believing it? I think the human race is awakening to the divine truth. You could call it Christ consciousness. I think it's the metaphorical return of Christ. Oh, Mary John, you're gonna get stuck. Your hand is gonna get stuck. Stop it. Nope. Okay. Um, I have a Maine Coon kitten. Oh, okay. So I believe currently right now, we're living in a time where the return of Christ has began. The metaphorical return has began. And I couldn't find anything in the Muslim tradition. You can't find much about this, with especially modern day stuff, modern day imams. I couldn't find much at all. And I asked my mufti, and he says there have been some opinions within the Islamic tradition of this. So I go back, and Ibn Arabi, rahimahullah, Ibn Arabi, ah, for those who don't know, a lot of people aren't familiar with Ibn Arabi. Ibn Arabi was called Sheikh al-Akbar, which is the greatest scholar. And not just Sheikh al-Akbar, like the greatest scholar of any time. This is during the golden age of Islam. This stuff gets me going. Al-Andalus, when Spain, Muslim Spain, 800 years, it was the golden age of Islam. He was from Spain. And he's one of by far the greatest scholars in Islamic history. And this is 1,000 years ago. By the way, Ibn Arabi talked about, because in today's spiritual circles, we hear a lot about ego death, right? Oneness. Ibn Arabi 1,000 years ago was talking about all of this stuff, right? Fanah, which is dissolution, it's essentially ego death. Baqa, the Sufis have this in their tradition. Wahdatul wujud, the oneness, interconnectedness of all being. Ibn Arabi's, that was his position, that it's all a manifestation of source of Allah. La ilaha illallah, it's all source. It's all God. So Ibn Arabi talks about, and when I read this, not that I needed it, right? Because there's external knowledge and then there's internal experiential knowledge. In Arabic, it can be called dhawq, like taste. In Urdu, they say zok or zaika. Kullu nafs dha'iqatil maut. Same word, like every soul shall taste death. Same word being used. So there's the internal experiential knowledge. That's something where can't be put into words, and it's the true knowing. Not that external knowledge isn't important. I think there's a time and a place for it. But if we only have external knowledge, right, and something happens, like let's say my iman or my faith is in the pastor or in the imam or in the book or in the hadith, and then something happens with those things. I find out my pastor or the imam committed a big sin, or I read certain hadith and I'm like, I just can't accept this. And then you end up losing faith. You read even the Quran, you read a certain verse of the Quran or the Bible, and you're like, this can't be from God. And then how many people leave religion, leave God? Because it's external, and the journey typically starts there. But when you have external knowing, dhawq, experiential knowledge, you don't need anything outside, right? And that is true freedom. So anyway, so I go and look into Ibn Arabi, and I see that in detail he's talking about the metaphorical return of Christ, and he's saying it's going to be an awakening. This is Ibn Arabi, Sheikh al-Akbar, in Islam. This is there, right? And no one's talking about this. So one of the big reasons I'm making this video is I haven't seen it, at least. I would have loved this stuff, right? So it's for anyone interested, and people can do their own research. So this is within the Islamic tradition. This has been talked about. And I feel that we're living in that time. And I feel people are waking up to their divine nature. And like I said, we could call it, I think Christ consciousness is such a common term. And Christ is beloved, alayhi salam, peace be upon him. So what, billions of Christians and billions of Muslims? Like, think about that. One human. And it's about the message. It's about the awakening. It's about the alignment. It's about I and the Father are one. That was Christ's message. Oh, one more thing I'll say, and I'll end the video. We have what we call, see, these things are not new. We have in Islam, there's a human, alayhi salam, named Mansur al-Hallaj. My mufti told me about this. I looked into it. He's called the Christ of Islam. And this is probably also almost 1,000 years ago. He had a mystical experience during meditation, or who knows, plant medicine, who knows. This is a long time ago. And he yelled out, Ana al-Haq, which means I am the truth. The truth, al-Haq, is Allah, is God, is source. And he said, I am source. And during that time, he had the moment, right? The same moment that Christ had, the same moment, Buddha, the same realization, the awakening. But during that time, similar to Jesus' time, They crucified him because this is, how can you say this? He wasn't referring to him, the personality, Mansoor. It was the divine essence that's in all of us. It's in literally every, and arguably in every, it's the only thing that's real. And so he had this magical, mystical experience. And he just felt, it was just a oneness. It was an experience of oneness, which many humans, thousands, and I'm sure some people watching this video have felt that we're connected to everything. Wahdatul wujud, right? We're connected to, it's all just one. It's all one. And when he yelled out, Ana al-Haq, this is blasphemy. This is, you're saying you're God, and they crucified him, they killed him, right? Same thing that happened with Jesus, and this has happened in the past, but today, what's beautiful is that we live in a time where we can talk about these things and not get crucified, not get killed. So that's what I wanted to share. I feel like I just scratched the surface, but at least I'm happy I recorded this and I got the message out there. This has been one of the most, you know how I talked about when something feels in alignment, I just jump in and I do it. This has been one of the most difficult things, making this video. I guess the message, but then also I don't feel very comfortable on camera. I've never recorded a video like this. So I was like, man, where do I sit? Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I was like, the lighting, it's been on my mind. Even me sitting like this, the left side is what I feel my good side. So I sat at an angle because I'm like, okay, I feel more comfortable like this. So yeah, that's my story. And that's it for now. Assalamu alaikum.